welcome to the Raw Food Health Empowerment Show. I am going live from my phone, so give me a like or a heart. I just want to make sure that I can see your comments. Of course, today we're going to be talking about the Raw for Lent 30-day program, because that's what we're doing right now. Now is Lent, and a group of us are doing Raw for Lent, and it's the 12th day. I'm feeling great. I just had for lunch a salad with, I landed in a small grocery store here in LA called Co-Opportunity, and they have a whole bunch of raw vegan options already packaged, and that trip was just so inspirational. I just loved it. But I got sprouted chickpeas to try. Tried it, not a fan. I know I've done it before, but it was many years ago. This time around, it wasn't too hard on my teeth, but it was not flavorful like cooked garbanzo beans are. Cooked garbanzo beans just absorbs the flavor, and this was really, really bland. And not just bland, but very green tasting. And I got a sun-dried tomato hummus and a curry hummus. I had to get both because I couldn't decide, so I'm like, just get both. And both of them are really, really good. And so I had the curry hummus in my salad, and I had half an avocado. I drizzled some flaxseed oil on there, and what else did I put on there? And some microgreens. And I'll post a picture on social media for sure, and definitely in the Facebook group. If you're in the Facebook group, I've been sharing some of my meals, and if you're in the Facebook group, share your meals, encourage others. I'm gonna share my mom's photo. She sent me a picture of her fridge, and it looks beautiful. She's doing a super, super amazing job on this raw food challenge. And I know everyone's going to, adjust it to suit them. If you can stick to it as much as possible, just allow yourself the 30 days to get that full detox, that full cleansing effect of enzymes, right? Because when you cook the food, you kill the enzymes, and the enzymes are necessary. We talked about on the previous episode for a ton of different processes that are happening in the body. So enzymes are crucial. Next week, we're going to be talking about water, how water is so crucial, and water is so controversial. There's a ton of stuff we're going to talk about next week, but let's stay focused on this week, right? So this week, I want to touch on some questions and things about raw foods, right? Since that's the theme for this month, we're doing the raw food challenge. And then I want to talk about some things going on in the news space. And I just want to make sure that I'm seeing your comments. If you have any questions or anything about the raw food diet, the raw food lifestyle, definitely post them in the comments below and I'll answer them. This Raw for Lent challenge is going into everything you could possibly want to know about the raw food diet, so definitely sign up for that. And because of all the internet issues, I just put one link to this video that will send you to the blog post with all the resources for everything we're talking about today. So I just want to see if I can see your comments. If you're here, give me a heart, give me a like, comment, so I can see you. Also, if you love the show and you want to make sure that you're notified every time I go live, make sure to comment, like, and share, because that engagement is what Facebook is looking for, to make sure that this thing gets visible. So even if you follow my Facebook page, you won't, hi Nad, nice to see you. You won't necessarily see the notification come up if you're not engaging with it, because Facebook is making a whole bunch of changes, right? They're looking out for the best interests of everyone who uses Facebook. So if they see that people aren't really engaging, they're like, oh, they're not really interested. And so therefore you really don't get to see my posts and all that. So let's get into it. And this is going to be a longer episode. I plan on having the episodes be a little longer, just so that to give people enough time to jump on, ask questions, engage. This is your times for us to commune and talk about the stuff that actually matters, right? Because they're not really talking about this stuff on TV about health and wellness and what matters in our communities, in our families, which is our nutrition and our mental and spiritual well-being, and how the spirit comes into play with this whole thing we're going to talk about today. Because raw for Lent, we've been talking a lot about the raw portion and not so much about the Lent portion. I know there's a lot of people that are watching this that may not be of a Christian background. They're not following Lent. Maybe they plan to do Ramadan, which you can still use this challenge during Ramadan as just a fasting, cleansing time for you. But I do want to focus on the spiritual aspect. Regardless of what you believe, that spirituality is definitely important to tune into. That's part of the holistic health. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, if you're wondering where you can get a variety of raw food recipes, it's definitely going to be in the meal plan for the Raw for Lent challenge. So make sure you click on the link to this video that will send you to the episode resources so you can sign up for the Raw for Lent challenge. And if you're looking to specifically detox your liver during this challenge, also there's a resource there for a juicing book written by my husband, Akinolakun. If you go to akinolakun.com, he has that book available for free right now. I don't know how long it's going to be for free. It's been for free for a while, but I don't know how long it's going to be. Definitely make sure you download that so you can see all of the produce that's great for detoxing and rejuvenating the liver and how to put them together in juices so you can get the most out of them. So if you're looking, like, I know I was having a conversation with a YouTuber that's in London. Her name is Tish Wonders. Check her out on YouTube. I think she's awesome. All her recipes look delicious. And she posted something that I was like, man, I cannot wait for this Raw for Lent challenge to be over so I can have that. It was like a kind of like a burrito taco thing with black beans and something that looked like broccoli, but it's not broccoli. And it just looked so colorful and so delicious. So that's definitely on my list to consume after this Raw for Lent challenge. But I mentioned to her that, you know, I'm doing this 30-day raw thing. And she's like, wow, you must be in a warm environment. Now, yes, I live in Los Angeles and it is warmer than the East Coast, right? It's definitely warmer than Chicago, where I used to be. And I'm grateful for that. I feel very blessed. Thank God. You know, I'm not really missing the snow at all. However, there are tips and tricks to do raw foods in the wintertime, in the cold time, if that's something you choose to do. When I work with clients, like typically the clients that I work with are in a situation where they're so overwhelmed, they're not able to really take that next step forward that they're looking for. So I don't push anybody to make major changes they're not ready for. But you never know what you're ready for unless you're like challenged a little bit. So we kind of dig in there, right? But at the same time, if you have a lot of trauma going on, if you are pregnant, if you are just going through so much turmoil and change, you know, this raw food cleanse will bring up emotion. So if you are not in a mental space to deal with that, I definitely wouldn't recommend doing that right now. But getting back to the whole weather thing, I can't even recall how I ended up here. But there are tips and tricks on how to enjoy raw foods in a cold environment, in the cold season time. So if you sign up for the Raw for Lent challenge, you'll get a ton of them. I'll tell you specifically what I do. I use a lot of spices. So I'll use cayenne, I'll use ginger, even in my smoothies. Definitely in my salads, I'll use cayenne. And these are very warming. I'll use, I'll keep my bananas out, which I tend to do anyway, regardless of the weather. I keep my bananas out because I like them at room temperature. I don't like frozen bananas. That's just a personal thing. I know some people really love frozen bananas and they just hate room temperature bananas, whatever. It's a personal thing. And then I'll just, if I'm really like not trying to be cold, I just won't put any frozen fruit in it. I'm not above running the heat if I need to, or just wearing layers, because I'm used to doing that. Anyway, living in Chicago, I would have to wear like a whole bunch of layers. So it's totally fine. That's how I get around it, because at the end of the day, I love the food that I'm consuming. I love raw foods. I love fruits, and I especially love smoothies, right? So I'm not willing to give that up regardless of whatever the weather is. I'll be in Antarctica drinking smoothies, basically, because that's just my jam. That's just my thing. But another thing is you can actually warm raw food. So last week we talked about how it's considered raw as long as it's not cooked beyond 120 degrees, right? Some say 110, some say 120. If you want to be on the real safe side, keep it under 110. If you're okay with just, that gray area, as long as it's below 120, there are enzymes intact. Under 110, they're definitely all the enzymes intact. So how do you do that? You do that if you have a dehydrator, you can put it in the dehydrator to warm it. If you're gonna put it on the stove, I really wouldn't recommend it, like put it in the oven in the stove, because it's hard to regulate that unless you're gonna use one of those food thermometers just to make sure it's not going over temperature. So you would have to invest in having one of those and having that on hand. But the dehydrator, I think, is like the easiest way. Another thing is if you're making raw soups, what I've done is I use like a cup of very warm water. So not necessarily boiling, but like probably just boiled and cooled down maybe a little bit, and add that to the blender, blend it up, and it will make the soup warm. And the stuff is not cooked, right? So it's just being mixed with really warm water. So those are some of the tips and tricks to have warm, raw food, because I know it's like we're almost midway through this thing, and I know you're craving cooked food. I just know that, right? And that's fine to feel the cravings. Just know that the cravings don't last forever. You don't have to give in to them. And when you have these tools in your tool bag, it makes it easier to deal with, right? So Nad, if you have any questions, I love that you're on, and I love that you're always here. Thank you so much. If you have any questions about the raw food diet, just let me know. Also, I don't know if there's anyone here from the Earth Healing Cafe community. If you don't know, if you've been following me for a while, you know what Earth Healing Cafe is, or was, who knows? But I am planning a retreat for this year around my birthday, okay? And I was inspired to do that because, I told you my grandfather passed away, and I went to Florida and I connected with family I hadn't seen in a while, and, cousins who are growing and grown and having kids, and it was just nice to connect with people. And I know even family on my mom's side, this was on my dad's side, but even family on my mom's side, like everyone is growing and changing. Like the aunts and cousins that I knew, when I was at home, like however many years ago, I'm 31 now, and it's light years away before I left there. But like back then they were a certain type of way, and now everybody is different. So I just wanted, to do something to give us an excuse as a family to come together, and also to share this lifestyle with them, because it is life-changing. And I also want to share it with you guys, my extended family, so friends and family. if you are interested, I'm just testing the waters right now to test interest, because I know I'm definitely gonna do it. But depending on how big I make it, really depends on how many people are interested. And the reason why I mentioned Earth Healing Cafe is because the original Earth Healing Cafe family will be there and hosting it. So they don't fully know it yet, but they will be on board. It'll be me, my husband, my mother-in-law. There'll be vegan food created and catered by us, raw vegan food, workshops, intimate workshops about clean eating, herbs, all sorts of awesome stuff. So if you're interested in this, in learning more, if you'd be interested in coming, type yes in the comments below. Okay, type yes in the comments below if you're interested in this, so that I can gauge to see how big it's going to be or how small it's going to be. But it'll definitely be here in Southern California, and probably over a 3 or 4 day period. But there'll be more details depending on how many people are interested. So let me know, okay? So let's check in with the news, right? There's been some stuff going on in the news lately. First, I want to talk about an article that a friend of mine shared with me. She said when she read the article, she thought about me. And it's by Thrillist.com. And it's talking about a vegan race war. And I'm like, oh God, why does there have to be a race war everywhere? But it was a really interesting article about how people of color aren't represented on stock photos when you search for veganism. And when you look, for the masses, right? When you look online and on social media, there doesn't seem to be that many people of color doing veganism. However, they are there. I even heard a colleague of mine, a health coach colleague of mine, say that, wow, you're working with the Black community and trying to promote veganism. Good luck with that, because they're not interested in that. But that's really not the case, because there are tons of vegans of color, okay? And that article goes into where you can find those people and tap into those people. And once you tap in and find, you'll see that there's a ton of them. Once you start down that bunny trail, they're out there. They're on Instagram. They're on YouTube. They're everywhere. And not only are they everywhere, but this is not new for, minority communities. This is not new for even the Black community, right? So I'll talk about my culture, and I love that they touched on it about Rastafarians, the original Rastafarians, the real devout Rastas, right? They eat an ITAL diet, and the ITAL diet is void of any animal product, right? Which their rationale for that is coming from their sacred texts, right? With their religion, though they wouldn't call it a religion, they call it a lifestyle, but blah, blah, blah. I could run down this whole bunny trail on that, but I'll leave that for another day. But it's coming from their belief system, basically. And so that's been around Rastafari has been around since a long time, way before the guy from PETA, because I think the guy who started PETA started veganism based on this article. I didn't even know that, because I'm not affiliated with PETA. I don't really, know too much about their background or their history. I just know what they do currently. But there's that. And then they also mentioned that the Black Hebrew Israelite community, they've established since the late 19th century, and they adhere to a strict vegan diet that they believe to be the secret to eternal life. Now, with both of these communities, Black Hebrew Israelites and the Rastafarian community, not everyone is following that. Same thing with Seventh-day Adventists. There are Seventh-day Adventist communities. One of them in particular, I believe in Loma Linda, they were referenced in the Blue Zones by Dan Buettner, where he wrote that book on behalf of National Geographic on centenarians, people who are living into their hundreds and not just living, not just surviving, but living, like taking care of the kids, farming, mobile and in their right mind and just very healthy and active. And he referenced this community of Seventh-day Adventists who don't eat meat, right? I think they consume dairy, but they don't eat meat. And they say it's because their religion tells them not to do that. But I have Seventh-day Adventist family members who definitely eat meat, and they were eating meat during that funeral time that we were spending together recently. So I know for sure that not all of them are following it. However, there are pockets that are saying that their text tells them not to do this. So this has been going on forever. Veganism is not new, but the PETA style of veganism, where it's like, let's save the animals, that may be new. I don't know, back in the day in the 19th, 18th centuries, if they really cared about animals in the same way that that animal rights activists do. But from a health perspective and from a spiritual perspective, definitely it's always been there, because the Bible even says that certain animals are unclean, right? You have the bottom feeders in the ocean that, they're eating the waste of the ocean. Those are unclean. Then you have the pig who doesn't sweat. He's unclean. Then in India, you have the cow, which is their sacred animal. They don't eat that, right? So so it's been around for forever. And in terms of like changing the stereotype, because that was one of the things that really triggered me to stick to veganism, because I was hearing and learning all this information, right, about how the physiology of the human body is more similar to that of an herbivore than a carnivore. We're not carnivores because our intestines are long and we don't have these long canine teeth, and we can't eat raw meat, and we can't run fast enough to even catch raw meat, and like all this stuff. We can see color. Like there's just so many things that make us more like herbivores than like carnivores. But if you read my article, we're actually more fruitarians than herbivores, and I kind of go into why that is and all of that if you want to go deep. But anyway, I heard all this stuff. It made sense to me, but there were some hot wings at Whole Foods that I was just really crushing on. Like every time I went to Whole Foods, I had to have these hot wings, and they were to die for, right? Literally, I guess, right? So I was just on that. But then I had this interaction at work. At the time, I was working in real estate, commercial property management, and in an environment where it was really racially charged. And NYU, I guess, did a kind of a good job at prepping me for the fact that, you may deal with this, but I really wasn't expecting it, being in the Bay Area and all that. So I was kind of a little bit off guard. But anyway, there was all this racial stuff going on in the office. And this woman said to me something that really rubbed me wrong. And in my head, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be a stereotype. And it was specifically about food. Like it was coming around to lunchtime, and she was like, "Oh, what'd you have for lunch? Chicken?" or something like that. Just the way she said it or something. I can't even remember exactly. But in my head, I'm like, I just felt so disgusted. I was like, I'm not going to be a stereotype. And which is the same reason why I never, at that point before, had ate watermelon. I swore off watermelon, never tried it, because I was like, I don't want to be a stereotype. I hate stereotypes, and I was on my Sister Soldier thing. So I was like, not going to do that. But, this woman, she really, so like with her, I went to Whole Foods. I had my last sit down, my last ceremonial sit down. Hey, Ma. Hey, Darrell Hilton. That's my mama. She's in the house. How you doing? So I had my last ceremonial sit down with those hot wings. I enjoyed it, and I said this was going to be the last time, and I savored that moment. I remember the day, and that was it. That was it for me. That was the last day, and it was because of this. I didn't want to be a stereotype, but all of that to say that at this point in time, the Black community, the Hispanic community, we are suffering with diabesity, what Mark Hyman calls diabesity, right? At such large proportions. This article even goes in to say that we're nearly twice as likely as whites to die from heart disease or stroke. And this can be easily avoided through diet. So even beyond that, what works in trying to influence the community more than anything is just being an example. So I know all of you guys who are watching me, and you are, you stay up with the show, you watch the show, you're probably watching the replays on YouTube. Just so you know, I have a YouTube channel. You can search Samantha Salmon. All of these episodes are on there. All of the episodes are on Facebook. Share them with your friends and family, and also do the work, be the example, because when you're the example, this is what really creates change. And that's why we're seeing veganism really on the rise, thanks to Instagram and, this food porn, right? They've done food porn, we grew up with it. I remember because I haven't watched cable or had cable in a while, but if you ever remember the pizza commercials, for those of you who have cable and watch the commercials, how they have the pizza and they pull the slice of pizza so you can see all the cheese stretching and the oil coming down, and when they show the burger, they show all the oil, right, to show how juicy it is. I mean, now at this stage of the game, when I see that cheese, all I see is mucus and nose knot. And I remember all the colds I used to have, and now the yellow mucus, the nasty mucus that I used to have eating cheese pizza all the time, but for the masses, they like that stuff. That stuff makes them salivate, right? That's food porn. Now, the vegans and the health community have done the same thing with healthy foods. And now you see veganism on the rise, and so many people are interested in paleo and all these little niche type of things that are more health focused. And this is really how we create change. Now, yes, there are people in other communities doing it, and we can do it. And I know who you are. You are in my community following me. So when you do it and you put yourself out there and just share the information from a kind and compassionate place. Now, understanding that everybody's on their own health journey. You're not trying to force anybody to do anything. You're just sharing because there are people around you. And I assure you that there are people around you in your family, in your community that is thirsty for the information, and you can be the water to the people in the desert around you, right? You can quench their thirst just by being an example yourself and just showing people through social media or in your home, when you invite people in your home, how you do it and how you do you and how you take care of you. And this is how we create change. And in terms of representation, I'm out here and I'm putting myself out there, and other people in the community that are, in the business, they're doing the same. Now, you as an individual can also do the same. And if you are an entrepreneurial mind, maybe that's an idea. If you own a company that creates stock photos, show more representation of the people of color who are in the vegan community, because there's a ton of them. There's always been a ton of them. And this article does a great job of highlighting that. Now, moving on to more news stories. This past week, Letitia Wright, if you saw Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, right? Black Panther was an amazing movie. Saw it twice, 3D and then 4D. I just was living in Wakanda in my mind forever. And now I just saw A Wrinkle in Time, so I'm living in that space right now. But Letitia Wright, who's actually from Trinidad, I believe. Or is it Guyana? No, Trinidad, I think she's from. She plays Shuri in the movie. And she was interviewed, and Madame Noor talks about the fact that she was speaking of her depression that she was dealing with. And I'll just read a little excerpt from it. She says she got tripped up comparing herself to other people. Now, I just want to put a pin in that right there. I think a lot of young people, and when I say young, people my age and younger, are dealing with this issue, like depression coming from comparison. Because we're looking like back, I was just talking about the positive effects of Instagram. This is the negative effect of Instagram now. Is that we're looking at people on Instagram showing the best of themselves, the best of their lives, and they're not showing the low points, the struggles, and the challenges all the time. Why? Because it's not sexy to do that, right? And is it going to serve a purpose, especially if they haven't come through on the other side? Do they have anything of value to share? So you have a lot of people just throwing up the best, and so the people watching, they're like, oh, like, these people have it all together. What am I doing with my life? I'm so behind. I'm so confused, you know? And it's just comparisonitis. And what I want to say before I continue reading her stuff, actually, let me continue reading what she said. She said, I didn't want to do acting again. I was in a very, very bad place. I was willing to just wrap it up. I put so much pressure on myself. I would watch these women that I'm on the Essence cover with and compare myself to them or anybody. Michael B. Jordan, John Boyega, comparing myself to these people. It was so hard for me to just accept that my path is different, not only with acting, but other things. Okay? So, this is the thing, right? The only thing I compare myself to is myself. And that's what I would recommend for everybody, not just young people, but anybody and everybody. This is how you stay out of the low area. You have your goals, right? So if you watched at the beginning, right, you know that I set my intention for the year around the end of the previous year, and I'm still like focused on it and fine-tuning it in the beginning of the new year. So I know where I'm trying to go for this year. My compass is set. And I know where I'm coming from, right? Because that's where the gratitude practice comes in. When you wake up every morning and you say, you know, thank you, God, for the fact that I'm in Los Angeles. This has been a dream, you know, that we've wanted for so many years, and we're actually here. Thank you for the great weather. I remember complaining so much about the cold and the snow in Chicago, and I don't have to deal with it anymore, you know? Just being grateful for where you are right now compared to where you used to be. Because if you look at that, you'll see that there's been a lot of progress made, right? So you always compare yourself to yourself and to where you're trying to go and where you've come. This is how you stay focused. Be like, you know, the horses with blinders on, right? Stay in your lane, stay focused. Like I like this in A Wrinkle in Time, Oprah plays this character called Miss Witch. And I just loved her character, man. That movie had me crying because it just like, it touched me so much, right? But she said, all you have to do is find the right frequency and have faith in who you are. And basically all that means is your job is to do you. What is it that you want to do in this world? What is your mission? What is your purpose? You get to decide, and you will know what the higher power, what your whoever it is that you pray to, whatever your spiritual beliefs is, if you tune into yourself and get quiet, right? That's why I really love this Raw for Lent time, because this is a time where we're not focused on being excited by these new foods and these, you know, foods with all these different spices. It's get simple with the food. Get very simple, get very minimalistic, and allow your body and mind to focus on what truly matters, right? If you're getting bored with food, that means food is where you find excitement. And that's not what life is. That's not what life's about. I love how they talked about at my grandfather's funeral, they quoted him saying that he would always tell people, You eat to live. You don't live to eat, right? And that's so true. Food is there to nourish ourselves and nourish our bodies, but it's not there for us to find fulfillment in life, right? You find fulfillment when you connect to your spirituality in a very strong and authentic way, when you find out what career is actually going to have you feeling happy and feel like you are doing what God sent you here to do. Mom says, true, it works very well for me. It also helped my spiritual growth. Yeah, exactly. Because there's just not so much going on. There's so much stimulation with food, especially with cooked food. There's a ton of stimulation. So, when we get minimalistic, right, with things, we can really focus on what really matters. So this thing, Letitia writes, she goes on to say, it's a thing that goes on, especially creatives, putting so much pressure on ourselves, and it leads to depression. The light that's in me now and the joy and happiness that I feel, I didn't get it on my own. It's God working through me. And she's very, very religious, spiritual. She's very much into it. You can see when all her interviews, because I'm telling you, I'm a huge Black Panther fan. I've been watching all the interviews, all the videos, for everybody, the director, everybody, following the costume designer on Twitter. Like, I'm just all up in it, right? Because I'm just so into it. But when you watch her in the interview, she's always talking about God and what it's done for her. And I love the fact that she mentioned she took a break from acting. She took time off of working so she could connect to her source, connect to her inner being, and connect to God and find out, get a reset on her compass. And that's exactly what we're trying to do right now for Raw for Lent. I don't want to distract it, because I know there are people out there who are like, you know what, I'm not into Christianity or whatever, I'm not doing the Lent thing, which is fine. If you want a raw food detox, this is definitely for you, because the whole challenge, I'm talking about raw foods and all the physical things, right? But if you want holistic health, definitely use this time to tap into the spiritual aspect of health, right? What is it that you believe in that's bigger than yourself? If you only believe in the tangible, right, then you're really going to feel lost in this world, in my opinion. Like, when hard times come, that is just going to be like the main focus, because you're not living for anything beyond you. It's such a narcissistic way to live. So for me personally, like, the spiritual aspect, my spirituality is really what allows me to do the work that I do. It's what keeps me centered. It's what keeps me strong. It's what allows me to wake up every day and not be miserable, right? Because yeah, we have hard times. I'm not going to say that I'm happy, go lucky all the time. But my mind is always focused on my purpose and my work. So my life has value. It has meaning. This is what gives me energy. So I don't need to, eat 2,000 calories or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting like true energy from the things that really feed me, what the Institute of Integrative Nutrition calls primary food. Right? And that will be spirituality, career, exercise, and what's the other thing? There's really like 12 areas, but there's like 4 main ones that they identify. But yeah, so when next month in the Raw Food Meal Planner Health Empowerment Circle, the Facebook group, we're going to be doing an audit. And if you're on my email list, you'll be included in that as well, where we're doing an audit to see where we are and how we can really up our game with our health, because all of this makes a difference. You have people who are doing green juices all the time, and yet cancer or some kind of sickness will manifest in their body. Why? Because there's stress, because there's trauma, because there's no connection to source. They're sad and depressed, and where's that coming from? And this is why holistic health is so important. It's not so like new age and tangible, because actually there are books I can recommend, and I'm sure I've talked about it on the show, where the body physically responds. So like I always use this example of you're in a movie theater, you're watching a horror film, and of course, in your mind, you know you're watching a film, right? You know it's not true, but inside your body, it's responding as if you were actually in the woods being chased by a bear. It's stressed. And then there's chronic stress where you're constantly in it. If you're constantly sad, depressed, or, overwhelmed with life stress because you're maybe taking care of a sick person, a sick family member, it takes its toll. They actually show that your lifespan decreases, the telomeres on the DNA shortens. There's, stress hormones surging all the time. And when the body is in a stress response, it cannot be in a relaxation response. You're either in the relaxation response or in the stress response, because both cannot happen at the same time. And the relaxation response is what actually allows the body to heal itself from disease, from sickness, from all of that. So this is why we want to focus on all things, not just food. And so with this Raw for Lent challenge, I implore you to really spend the time to connect on what truly matters. What is it that you want out of life? And find your inner voice. And some of the tools that you can use to do this is journaling every day and expressing gratitude every day. Like I mentioned, expressing yourself, finding that creative outlet. Like, how can you be creative? Like, I know there was a time in my life I thought I was not creative at all because I'm very left brain. I'm very do this, That's why with the business, I was doing administration, HR, finances, that type of thing. While my husband, who's very right brain creative, he created the recipes. He did all the graphics, graphic designer background, all that. So he's very creative, right? Now, it was my mother-in-law who said, no, you are creative. And when she said that to me, she challenged me to find out. And then I realized, oh yeah, I used to do dance and I sang in the choirs, like in high school, in college, at church. I sang in the choir. I love to sing. I love to dance. And every time I write an email, I'm creating. Every time I do a social media post or even these shows where I have to create content, right? I'm creating, so I am a creative person. And that shift in mindset, that shift in thought really opened my whole world to possibilities, to how I see myself and my capabilities and my potential. It's like a ceiling was lifted, right? And so when you tap into your creativity and find fun, find joy in that, and you will see the difference in how you feel in your body and your health and all of that. So some old news that's worth repeating, okay? On another tip, when we talk about stress alleviation, because we were talking about depression, one of the things that actually alleviates depression is exercise, right? When you exercise, that oxygen is going to the brain. You get the dopamine drip, which is the feel-good hormone, right? And the New York Times have reported in 2016 that you only really need 1 minute of a workout to be healthy, right? So let me read an excerpt from the article. If you are an elite athlete, then obviously incorporating both endurance and interval training into an overall program maximizes performance. But if you are someone like me who just wants to boost health and fitness and you don't have 45 minutes or an hour to work out, our data shows that you can get big benefits from even a single minute of intense exercise. So how many people are excited about that, right? You don't have to work out for 45 minutes every day or even every other day. Can you do a minute? Can you do 2 minutes? You really only need that small amount. Now, how to get the biggest bang for your buck? Like, what do you need to do in that 1 minute to really make it matter? That's the next article. New York Times 2014, they had talked about what to do during that short time. And we've talked about it here on the show. I think that was like the first episode of the Raw Food Health Empowerment Show where I talked about HIIT. And the excerpt from that, and just to remind you, The resources, all of these articles that I'm referencing is on the link to the description below. So if you go there, it'll take you to the blog post where you can read all of this. But it says at the end of the prescribed time, those who had completed 3 HIIT sessions per week had improved their endurance capacity by almost 11%. So there are gains to be made even from short exercises, right? Specifically HIIT. HIIT stands for high intensity interval training. So you bring your heart rate up, then you bring it down, then you bring it back up, then you bring it down. So as long as you're doing some type of movement in this fashion on a daily basis or every other day, depending on how long you're doing it, you will see results. You will get results in terms of endurance and in terms of fat loss, metabolism boost. So there's lots of benefits. Don't feel like you need to do an hour a day to make stuff matter or work. Okay, do what you can do because it all counts. It all helps. It does make a difference. Now, Wakanda forever. There's a Wakanda inspired HIIT workout. So click on the link. It's a Wakanda inspired dance HIIT. So it's super fun. You're going to have a lot of fun and get that metabolism up and get that calorie burn and sweat, right? Detox, sweat, and just have fun. Have fun, sweat, and detox, all right? So thank you so much for all of you who joined me live. Like I said, if you have any questions about anything, definitely post it in the comments below. Like and share this video. And next week, we are talking all about water. Thank you, Nad. Yes, I love sharing. And if there are any topics that you want me to share or cover, definitely put that in the comments below. Next week, we're talking about water. It's the showdown. Alkaline versus spring water. Which one should you drink? Does it matter? Like, water is so controversial. Who knew? And there's so much to learn. There's like new types of water that's out there. We're going to be talking about a lot. Like deuterium, depleted water, hydrogen plus water. Like there's just all this stuff. We're going to just go deep. Thanks, Sam. I love the water you recommend. Awesome. Which one did you end up getting? Did you get the Starkey one? We're going to be talking about geothermal water. What does this mean, right? Why is water so important? I mean, we know we kind of covered it before, especially if you did my, the 10-day course on super immunity, where we talked about, water and how important it is to have a filter and not drink tap, right? Because tap is the worst. Everything is in tap water. Like, people are taking pharmaceutical drugs, they're going to the bathroom and they're defecating or urinating out the drugs, or they're just throwing the pills down the water, or, and they put like all this chemicals and stuff in the water, and it's like we end up drinking that. So Icelandic, awesome. Yeah, Icelandic. So we're going to be talking about that, all of that next week into lots of detail. But yeah, tap water is a no-no. We talked about filters, but we're going to go more in depth next week on water and explore some of the new stuff that's out, some of the new things that people are talking about on the wellness scene. Word on the street is we're going to be talking about it next week. So I hope you guys have a blessed week, and be well, all right? Take care.